The root problem with the UK housing market is there isn't enough housing. And this has come about because housing construction has gone down very substantially over recent years at the same time as the population is rising more and more rapidly. And it's these two factors taken together which have pushed prices right up to astronomically high levels, causing an enormous amount of distress in the housing market, which badly needs to be resolved. I think one of the major key policy solutions to the housing problems in the UK is to get more housing built by the public sector. The big fall off in house construction over the past few years hasn't been in the private sector, although there has been a fall off there. It's been in the public sector where house building has gone down by about 80% compared to what it was 2 or 3 decades ago. And it's this shortage of social housing which is probably the single biggest reason why we have a housing crisis in the UK at the moment. I think the government could get more housing built by local authorities relatively easily. What it needs to do is to make the finance available to local authorities to allow this to happen. Housing associations, I'm sure, would play a role as well. But we need to get back to the sort of numbers we saw 3 or 4 decades ago, which were much, much higher, perhaps 5 times higher than the rate of housing construction in the public sector right now. Planning laws have always been cited as being a big problem, and NIMBYism too. But these problems existed 30 or 40 years ago when we were building far more houses than we are now. So I think it's hard to say that the planning system by itself is a really, really big factor in all this. I think there are some policies that can be very clearly identified which would reduce the amount of housing construction. The main one being that the public sector turned away in the 1980s from producing around about 120, 150,000 new properties a year to producing almost nothing. And that was an ideological shift away from allowing the public sector to construct houses. And the cumulative effect of all this over 30 odd years has been a huge shortfall, particularly in social housing.